like what does it really is the transaction looks like from a title company's perspective, right? What do you do? Like take us through the process from starting from when the buyers, because as we know, the buyers are the one that choose the title companies. They use a title company. What happens next, and what happens throughout the process until the closing?
When it comes to buying a home, a buyer will go through an experience not unlike what one might see in a game of golf, where it's a flurry of activity, hurry up and wait. In as much as once we get a contract, it's important that we make connection with the buyer and the buyer timely deliver the earnest money deposit. And this tends to be issue number one because it implicates concerns or considerations about security. How do we ensure the safe transfer of funds from buyer to us, and also timeliness? In the purchase contract, it'll specify the amount of the deposit and a deadline for the delivery to the title company. So right away, that connection happens. And at that moment, while the iron's hot, we commence working with the buyer to get a profile, information about them and the transaction. At this time, we typically have agents' information on file. We work with a lot of agents on a repeat basis. And during this time, we're preparing preliminary disclosures of what title fees look like. We're getting information from the agents about commission instruction. Now, say a buyer's purchasing with a lender. The buyer separately is going through the loan application process with their loan officer. The loan officer will deliver various disclosures and estimates of closing costs. We work with the loan officer's team to firm up those estimates so a buyer has a better idea of what the final number looks like. The lender will then issue a closing disclosure 3 banking days prior to settlement. That happens on the lending side, but only after our team is working with the lending team to prepare that document itself. Now, I mentioned the hurry up and wait. So the wait part is between contract and closing, a lot of the work a title company does is in the background. We pull the title, we order something called a title abstract, which is a history of the ownership of the property. It's kind of interesting because there you're going to find the names of the owner, the prior owner, the years of transfer, and all of the supporting documents. It's at this stage, too, that we look to identify that are liens against the property, or perhaps easements or other restrictions that could impact what a buyer can and can't do with their property down the road. This is then disclosed to the buyer and discussed at settlement. During this time, issues spotted or identified, disclosed, and resolved when available. And we prepare title insurance documentation, which will be required by the lender for the protection of their policy and will be obtained by the buyer in an informed decision, as it is a very important part of insuring one's home ownership. Now, 3 days before closing, lender sends the disclosure, buyer shows up for the actual settlement day. Very exciting day. Typically, the seller will have signed in advance. Buyer fees, funds are delivered, loan funds come in. We go through about 1.5 inches of paperwork, and the buyer leaves our shop happy, keys in hand, with a nice post-closing photo.